Do I know me? I was jealous from the moment I saw her. This woman was everything I wanted to be. She waltzed in, dressed simply, but so distinguished. It was as if she floated on air. Her whole being was light and warm. She had a huge smile for all who made eye contact with her. You could tell she was wise. She seemed unburdened by time and happenstance. She wore a medallion on a chain around her neck, and it caught my eye. It was familiar. She walked towards me, and I zeroed in on that necklace. I had seen it before. I knew that necklace. It was the exact one I brought in Copenhagen 20 years ago when my daughter studied abroad in college. The distinctive turquoise and aquamarine stone melted with gold and a hint of orange. That medallion I cherished. She moved right into my space, unafraid to come close to me. I reached out my hand and instinctively touched the necklace without asking. She did not flinch. Just like I had so many times in my life, rubbing my thumb and index finger over its smooth yet embossed surface, sliding the wide rivet over the beaded chain that always looked faded and yet perfectly matched the medallion's border. I looked up at her, and she said, "You don't know who I am." I must have looked startled, taken aback. How could I know this creature, this mature, wise, self-confident, comfortable woman in her own skin? I always wanted to be just like that, just like her. She smiled and said, "I am a better you. You come from the land of if only, and I was raised in the world of why not. And now we are both here. Don't you recognize yourself?" I'm Ilene Marcus, and I did not recognize myself. And I worked towards becoming a better version of myself, to growing into that wise woman who can attract people to her and who has a message and can share it. I have found my heart and my soul in the Berkshires. I have been here over 25 years associated with this place, and this is where I have grown up, where I've learned to find my authentic self and to really become the me I'm supposed to be. There's a funnier story about the necklace, which is that we bought it in a little town outside of Copenhagen, you know, the one where they sell pot, because pot wasn't illegal in those days, and it was on a table, and I bought it, and it amounted to $12 instead of 12 kroner, $12, and I loved it. And by the end, I wore it everywhere, and it made me feel like this vacation was majestic and symbolic. And by the end of the vacation, I had lost it, and I made my daughter go back through parking lots and castles and gardens. We didn't find it. 2 years later, I was at a street fair, and I saw it again on a table. And I said, "Oh, this is going to be good. This is a street fair, in an expensive part of town." And I said to the guy, "I like that. How much?" $12. And it reminds me, what was meant for me will never miss me, and what misses me was never meant for me. And this medallion reminds me of who I want to be and how I want to survive. So I've been on this writing journey for a while now, and I realize I always have the same first step in my process. Always. It doesn't matter if I'm writing something for business, for work, and now, for myself, for you, to talk about my truths. My first step is always the same. In the Berkshires, we have, mountains, and we have beautiful clouds, and we have meadows, and we have silence, and people meditate, and yoga centers. And my first part of my process is always to panic. That is what I do. I panic. I get right. Oh, they're going to know more than me. They're going to do better. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not prepared. I panic. And it's really interesting because panic is a really fun word, right? It can be a noun or a verb. It's very fungible. And the past tense, past participle, and present participle, I had to look that up because I don't remember anything from high school. Had to look that up. Require the K. So I get a CK punch. I panic. So my first step is always to panic. And what I've learned is that I need to give myself those 5 minutes to panic. I've instituted the panic buffer. You missed it. It happened before we came on camera, so you did not see it. But I think that even when you're surrounded in the green mountains, sometimes I say I live in a snow globe, with the snow falling and the way the trees look and the ice hits them in the Berkshires. It is just so beautiful, but I still have that internal compass to panic. But I give myself a 5-minute panic buffer. everything I can combat, and it's a good exercise. Try it at home, panic for 5 minutes, write everything down, like 3 minutes, you start repeating yourself. So panic and then get on with it. So if you ever need to panic with someone, I am here. And I just wanted to let you know the creative processes are different for everyone, but it is in this community that I've really learned to nurture my inner artist and my creative processes. So what was it like for me? I always wanted to be a writer, and I didn't think I could be. I ended up writing a lot at work because I loved what I did, but I didn't think that I can make a living or really talk about myself this way. And I wrote this piece only about 2 years ago when I finally looked at where I had been and where I was going. And it's called Lost Earring. When I worked in the city, at the end of each day, I lined up the color pens used for editing in my desk drawer, poured the contents of my wallet out on the table, counting the dollars left, backtracking my day. What did I buy? How much was lunch? Did $20 fall out of my pocket when I wasn't paying attention? Before I climbed into bed, I unclasped my earrings, always the left first and then the right. Delicately, I would place them clinging together in a small top drawer of my dresser, methodically reckoning every pair of earrings to make sure they have a mate, watching them sparkle against the thick black velvet, cradling my jewels until I slid the drawer closed. There were years I acted as if I didn't care, randomly tossing things into my velvet-lined drawer, rings bought on eBay, a necklace for my daughter, 2 slim silver bangles from the flea market, nonchalant, as if it didn't matter, as if I didn't care, as if I was afraid of losing nothing, of not losing anything, tossing whatever came across my path that day into my big leather satchel, digging my hand into that bag, deep, rummaging around, playing a game in my head. Do I know this object? Can I find what I need by touch alone? A cheeky smile always crossing my face when I felt a smooth, small cylinder, a lipstick I had forgotten. More often frustrated, digging harder in that bag and deeper when I couldn't find what I needed. It would be gone. Too scared to lose anything, to risk anything, to shine bright, to put myself out there and stake a claim, to be bold enough to be made a fool, never brave enough to try. Everything must be lined up just right before I try. A drawer full of earrings waiting for a party, a celebration, an outfit befitting their beauty that makes them pop. Waiting for the time I won't be afraid to close the drawer without one. Now, I write alone in my house, sometimes in a coffee shop. Often I go to the library in the center of my small town with no traffic lights, choosing the private room in the far back corner, straddling being part of and yet still alone, organizing each draft of my stories, musings, and poems into files, and then into more files, cradling them in the cloud where they live, waiting to be let out to the world. When I worked in the city, my words flew out the door, slowly researched, quickly developed, grants, speeches, legislative analysis, and memos. I was in politics. My colored pens circled new ideas, additional costs, missing information. My intent was decisive about what to think, how to vote, and where to put resources. My work, public. My authorship was private. No one knew I wrote it. Today, I create to tell you what I feel, to experience the full force of me. My ego, the final line of defense, cradles each smidgen of prose I write, then rewrite. These thoughts come from me. My words are mine alone. Will they sparkle upon release? Will you shine in their reflection? Will you understand me? So today, I write to be heard. I write to tell you what I think. And it all started with managing annoying people. Now, I say that managing annoying people is the handbook about me. I tend to be annoying. I talk loud, I talk fast, I think fast, I come in, I take over. Not everyone values that. You'd be surprised. But managing annoying me, I wrote when I was about my experiences working in really huge systems. I managed 10,000 people and to boot a 38,000 person workforce that was out in different agencies. So I managed a lot of people at one time. And what I learned was it was never, ever, ever about my actions, right? What I planned to do, what I thought I would do. I always like to say, Everyone is a good driver when the lights are green, there's no rain, and the road is smooth. But you put a few bumps in the road, a few pieces of hail, right? Somebody that might be swerving a little, and all of a sudden no one knows what to do and the road is a mess. Well, this was my handbook on how to tell you how to get around those bumps in the road. Not, obviously obnoxious people, not people who are unethical, but people who are competent, ethical, and moral, but they can drive you crazy. They chump their cereal too loud. They always come in with a pile of files. They always ask you the same question. What's the data? What's the data? And you, in turn, get triggered. Why do we get triggered? It's very easy. We get triggered because it's either historical or hysterical. It reminds us of something we knew, your mother, your aunt, your sister, maybe a teacher, maybe, somebody else important in your life. Or it's something that we see as ourselves. They're a mirror. We like something about them, or we don't like, or we wish we had the guts to do what they're doing. So I wrote this book because your reactions speak louder than your actions. And I talk to managers about different ways to keep yourself calm. And this book started out of working with a lot of different CEOs of startups and big companies and little companies with limited financial means to really think about how they wanted to be with their staff. And it really all comes from inside, right? If you don't believe in it, that doesn't happen. And that is a really, really core philosophy for me, a very important thing about how I show up in this world. What do I feel inside? But it was always what I was afraid to tell you about. And it is this place, this greenery, this place in the Berkshires that has finally brought me home and has made me feel that I can talk about my truths. Now, I have a story about a compass. I had a bracelet that had a little compass on it. It was given to me by a friend when my life blew up. That is a whole nother story that we won't get into today. But my life blew up, my career blew up, as often does happen when you're not meant to be there, like the necklace, which I was meant to have. And my life blew up, and I was really searching for what I wanted to do. And I had a friend, her name was Hope. Truth be told, I called her Hopeless. But Hope gave me a necklace with a compass, and she said, I really hope you find where you belong. It was one of the most touching gifts I ever got in my life. And what do you think happened? Within 2 weeks, I lost the bracelet. I didn't have it. Didn't know where it was. Backtracked all my steps. It's a theory here, right? Or a theme. I had to backtrack for the necklace. Backtrack all my steps. Can't find it. Should I buy another? I don't know. I say, I'm going to move forward without the bracelet. And for 2 years, I try to find my way. I'm traveling the country, speaking on the book. I am working on projects that aren't really exciting me, but I need to pay the bills. And I'm trying to find out who I am and what I'm doing. And I come home to my beloved Berkshires, and I'm mowing the lawn, and I'm taking care of my house, and I see something shiny, shining. And I had just come from the Northeast, and I'm saying, I want to live in Seattle. I want to live in Hawaii. I love these places that are cool and have big trees and are damp and have a lot of rainy days. And I'm walking around, and I'm mowing the lawn, and I see something shiny. I don't want to break the lawnmower, so I go and pick it up, and there was the compass bracelet. 2 years later, in a part of the lawn that was just a skinny little field, and that's when I knew, this is my home. This is where I belong. I found that compass, and it was meant to tell me, why are you looking? You're already here. So that's all about managing annoying people. Where does one go for managing annoying people? What do they do? Well, I wanted to become like the wise woman with the necklace, and I started on that journey, and I started to create a body of work around managing myself. And I wrote this as a handbook, but then I realized it was not enough, and I started on the journey of managing annoying me. How do I get out of my own way to help you see me better, understand me, for me to be a better person, to help you to be a better person? Because the bottom line is we're all on this earth together. We're all here for one reason, to help each other. Otherwise, we'd be in little bubbles and would never touch. So it's about how we come together and how our intended actions impact each other's, and what we do to each other that's meaningful. And that's why I live my life. I'm involved in my community. I volunteer for things. And I think that's a really important part when people say, what makes your life work? Or how does this all hang together? Or how do you find this optimism? I get outside of myself. I build community. And community is what it's all about. It's about knowing your neighbors. I lived in the city for a very, very long time, and it was very easy to, have a public discourse with someone, over, the news shows or through the editorial pages. But in the Berkshires, I have to throw out my garbage next to them if I fight with them. And there's a whole different level of understanding who your neighbors are and your role and my place on this earth. And a lot of that is from standing on the earth. We hike here, we trail here, we appreciate our meadows. And most importantly, we farm here. We create food and sustain each other. Everyone has an art here. The art of writing, the art of healing arts, the art of helping others, and the art of cooking and farming is just so important because this has led me to where I am now in my major work, which is ladderism. Ladderism is my own philosophy. It's all about climbing up and down the ladder of your life. And if you're like me, sometimes you're just hanging on. You're not going up, you're not going down, you are just hanging on. So I am an ism, Ilene Susan Marcus. So I'm not trying to be quirky, but I'm a ladderism. But I think this is a really important thing in life. I say ISM stands for in search of meaning. What is your meaning? What are you doing here? Where do you belong? What do you want to contribute? How do you want to help others? So I have some philosophy when it comes to ladderism. The first piece of the philosophy is you are responsible for the life you have and want. No one can climb for you. If I come over to my ladder and I walk on it, someone can give me a little push, but I have to get up on that ladder of my own weight. I have to pull myself up. We talk about bootstrapping in companies and making things happen, but in your own life, you are the one that has to make it happen. No one can climb for you. Secondly, you are a person that matters. No matter your title, your purpose, whether you're growing the food, fixing the food, canning the food, cleaning up the food, everything you do matters. It supports others, it helps others, and it propels all of us to be together and to do our best stuff. If I don't have my coffee in the morning, I'm not going to be thinking too good. So whoever helped me make that coffee or gave me that coffee, that's a very important person in my life. But we're all interconnected that way. Every single job has noble purpose, has a reason why it needs to be done. And the prouder you are of what you're doing, whether you're emptying the dishwasher, sweeping the floor, or building the floor of the building, it all matters because we all stand together. I like to remember my third principle is you are making progress even when you feel you are hanging by a thread. I love that hanging thing because, I'm always hanging on. And a lot of times it's scary in life. We do feel that we're only hanging on. We do feel like there aren't many options and no one's under us. But there is always a ground and there is always a way back down. And there's always a moment to pause, remember who you are, remember where you are, and to take that time to get back to where you want to be. There is absolutely no shame in climbing down or climbing up. The only shame is in staying still. Hanging on is different than staying still, right? And let's be honest, staying still is another thing in and of itself if you can sit in your own feelings. But in life, you always have to be, adjusting to what's going on around you. And that is a really good skill. And the ladder shows us how. I think, that's the fourth tenet that I just talked about, going up and down the ladder of life. No matter the direction, go up, down, or just hanging on, you are still moving, and that's the point. You're moving, you're growing. I'm one of those people, 5 steps forward, 3 steps back, 4 steps forward, 6 steps sideways. You don't hear that one too often. 6 steps sideways. It's never a straight line for me. And I used to look for that straight line and want that straight line. And living in the mountains, I realized it's not a straight line for a reason. We are all meant to ebb and flow and search and become. And watching the seasons to grow and to change and to rebirth. It's all part of how I have to treat my own life. And I can't forget that. I can get busy and forget it. And then my favorite one is when I get busy, life gets lifey. There's no other way to say that other than life gets lifey. Things are going to come at you. How do you want to handle them? But I have learned the trick is always going through them, not around, going through. Life gets lifey, I'm going to lifey show up. Now, I have a motto that I've been living by. Just because it isn't working doesn't mean it's not working. Now, I learned this being a writer. When I was, as a writer, if I'm writing something and it's not getting exactly where I want to go, or I'm not getting my point across, or I don't think I know what to do next, I can just erase it. It never happened. What a gift, right? If it's not working, I can do something else. At the same time, I also have to be strong enough to know I'm here. I might not know how to move. I might keep doing the same thing. Just because it's not working now doesn't mean it's not working. What's around the corner? What's around the miracle? What's going to happen next? That's the excitement of the ladder. Are you up? Are you down? Are you around? What can you see? How does your perspective shift? It's all about that. So I'd like to tell you a little about where I'm heading and what I'm doing, and I'd like to give you some perspective from the ladder. So here's the ladder. People spend their whole lives climbing the ladder. They spend their whole lives climbing the ladder of success, only to find, once they reach the top, that the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. Thomas Merton. So know your roots, know your foundation, know where you're going, and there's no shame in climbing the wrong wall. Just make sure you find the right one eventually. My favorite philosopher, it does not matter how slowly you go as long as you do not stop. Confucius. Confucius lived, I don't even know anymore, BC, millions and millions of years ago. But that's what I was just talking about. You have to keep moving, keep climbing. Just don't stop. Reach for what you want. Simple, little things, big things, reach for them. And my favorite, the task, and this is what I strive to do and be in my work now. The task, and now I'm going to go down the ladder because you don't want to see me fall on the ladder. And as I joked before, I only go to the top shelf when I'm reaching the chocolate all the way up in the pantry. Otherwise, I try to stay one or two. The task is not so much to see what no one has yet seen, but to think what nobody has yet thought about that which everybody sees. Erwin Schrödinger. And he was a Nobel Prize physicist. You probably know him from the cat theory, there's the cat dead or alive in the box. If you don't look, you don't know. And I think that when we hear that, what Schrödinger said, never look at a ladder the same. It's not just to go up on a wall. It's to change your perspective, to realize when you hang on, to realize when you need balance. So sometimes the most important thing we can do is just look a different way. Now, I want you all to try to find your ism, your meaning, what you are in search of. And I have 3 little instructions for that. One is balance on the ladder of your life. And when I talk about balance, I like to talk about the head, the heart, and the gut, the triangle. The head, we know what the head does, the brain, the masher. Well, from the head, we then have the heart, the feelings, the love. It just knows. And then there's the gut, the intuition. And those 3 things have to be balanced. If you're like me, my head was figuring out everything. It was over here. My heart and my gut weren't in it. So be balanced on the ladder of life. Stand firm and really think about your head, your heart, and your gut. My favorite saying, your reactions speak louder than your actions. Like we said, when it's all green and everybody's doing good, but when someone surprises you, when they do something you don't like, when life throws you a curveball, how you react is everything. It shows people who you are, what you're made of, and it sets the tone for what you're doing next. And my new favorite statement, just because it isn't working doesn't mean it isn't working. Things sometimes take time. We're all very used to computers now. Reboot, turn it on, come back later and it works. Just because it's working doesn't mean it's not working. Sometimes in life we find that the greatest adventure is simply a conversation. Amadeus said that, Mozart said that. And I am so happy that I had this chance to have a conversation with you today about what I'm working on and who I am and what drives me. And it's really thank you to Sherry, who has been producing these. She's kind of in the backgrounds of our solo creatives of the Berkshires, and so glad that she put this together. So I am Ilene Marcus. You can find me on Amazon, my book. You can find me at Align Workplace. You can just Google Managing Annoying People, and I pretty much pop right up. And hopefully soon there'll be much more about ladderism to hear and see and learn from. I want to leave you with one of my favorite quotes, because when someone does something well, don't try to recreate it. Go with it. Most of the shadows in life are made by standing in your own sunshine. Ralph Waldo Emerson. May you all find your sunshine today and be happy and be audacious and go free. Thank you.